Welcome to Weekly Talkback. I'm Kevin Beers.
And I'm David Whitten.
And this is the show where we get to talk back to Pastor Dave about his message from Sunday morning. This show is for August 20th, 2023. The title of the message was Welcome a Stranger, Welcome Christ. This is part 5 in a series, and it's also the final part. Subtitled, Jesus is in the Neighborhood. So let's jump straight into it again.
Okay.
So one of the things you said in your message was,
So the lawyer asked Jesus, of all the 613 commandments that we have in the Jewish law, which was the most important? Since the lawyer was the expert in the law, Jesus turned it around and answered his question with another question. In fact, 2 questions. What is written in the law? What do you read there? The expert of the law then responded, You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And so, wanting to justify himself, he asked Jesus, and just who is my neighbor?
then you state,
Isn't it a question that we all ask, one time or another?
why do you think we as Christians ask ourselves who our neighbor is? I mean, why do we have to ask that?
Well, because the challenge that Jesus has before us is that in this sermon, I basically address the fact that everyone is our neighbor. Mm-hmm. And I think that as Christians, we want to be somewhat like the lawyer in saying, now, does this person here in front of me, does this person fall into that category? And if so, then I'm going to have to deal with this person's problems. And frankly, I don't want to. And I think that's why we want to kind of justify ourselves by saying, well, that person I don't know. He's of a different culture. He's from a different city or part of town. I don't normally go to this part of town. So, he's not really my neighbor because I live on the other side of town. So somehow I'm scot-free.
Okay. So just trying, I don't want to be responsible for this.
Yeah, essentially, I think.
Okay.
What do you think? You asked the question.
Yeah. So, well, actually, let's continue on with what I got here because I think, because I agree with you.
Okay.
But I do have some questions when it comes to that.
Okay.
Okay, so after going through this long list of people of who our neighbor is, you said,
Jesus is teaching us, where do we draw the line between neighbor and non-neighbor? Where's the line drawn, folks? It's not drawn. We don't draw a line. A neighbor is anyone and everyone.
So as a church and actually as individuals, we have limited resources. Mm-hmm. So we have to draw some lines as to who we serve. So if everybody's our neighbor and Jesus says, serve your neighbor, should we be drawing? You said we don't draw lines on who our neighbor is, but we are limited in what we can do, our energy, our money, everything we have has limits. So how do we go about serving all these neighbors if there are no lines?
Well, yeah, and that's a great question, and it's a great challenge. And I think it is a challenge for us to discern in that sense. Obviously, in a resource kind of way, we do have to draw the line. When you think of it that way. Now, maybe in giving of our time and talents, you might not draw the line in the same way, but financially, of course, there are limits. It reminds me of a good friend of mine from Kenya who went back to his village after suffering a 3-year drought. He said every morning that he woke up, he said there was a line of people ready to greet him outside his front door. Dozens of people, 30, 40, 50 people. They wanted to greet him, but more importantly, they wanted to plead for help. They did all they could, and then they finally reached a point where they were essentially out of money and couldn't bear the thought of turning anyone away. So they actually had to leave their own home village just to get away because they were just smothered by the needs. That's a challenging question, and I don't have a clear answer other than the fact that, yeah, I mean, we have responsibilities financially for the things that we have budgeted. We are also responsible for our neighbor. That responsibility has to be discerned by, is it a financial need? Is it all just always handing out money? Or is it something that we can do? Or is it something that we can direct someone to, another resource or something?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's. I knew when I came up with the question that
Yeah.
the answer itself.
Yeah, it's too hard to answer. I mean, it's tough. It's a challenge.
Yeah, because my own thinking is, I think what ends up happening is, like, we don't have to go looking for neighbors to serve. It's like God's just going to lay that at our doorstep and say, here you go, deal with it.
Yeah.
Or not, no, I shouldn't, that sounded very cynical, but more of a like, I'm choosing you to serve this particular person. Now, should we go out looking for where the needs are? I think that's also a yes. But at the same time, with limited resources, yeah, that discernment is so incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
But I think for many, if we get outside the box of, well, the only way to help this person is with money, maybe that's the wrong way to think about it. Maybe it's like, okay, this is the underlying issue. What can we do?
Right.
It's like, well, we can give people a fish.
Yeah.
Or we can teach them to fish for
Exactly.
themselves.
I thought of the same illustration.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just another way we might approach it.
Absolutely.
Maybe because you actually said in your message too, there is enough water, or maybe it was.
It was in the thoughts on giving, actually.
Thoughts on giving. There is enough water. There is enough food. There is enough of everything. Because I do know for a fact that in our processing of food in this country, all the waste that occurs is enough to feed the entire earth.
Isn't that amazing?
Of those who are hungry, I should say.
Yeah.
Not the entire earth. But those who are hungry, we could always, that there is enough food. It just isn't being doled out correctly.
Correct.
There's a lot of issues on how that could even happen, but it's there. So maybe we got to get outside the box on that one.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. Let's move on, because that's a topic because hunger is actually a very near and dear thing to me. So I could talk about that all day. Now, you also said that being neighborly is a big part of Christ's call to hospitality. Now, this is actually where I wanted to talk about the fact that we want to follow Jesus' example, so we don't actually have to go out. Do we have to go out looking for neighbors that we need to serve? So I actually got into that a little bit, because I think like I said, I think God's going to lay those we should serve at our doorstep or in our pathway, and then it's up to us to respond to it. I think that's where the big issue comes in. Do we know what we're looking for when it comes to serving others? Do we know who needs to be served? Yesterday, I had announced that we're starting our monthly movie night on September 1st. Now, to me, this is a form of hospitality, but the movie itself, to me, is a relatively superficial piece of the hospitality. Because I think on a deeper level, it's actually letting the local neighborhood here let them know we are here. And if our congregation members meet the neighbors and build relationships, because I truly believe that our church should become more of a community center, a place where people can go and support each other.
I like that idea.
I don't think it's a matter of the church members have to do all the serving. It can be the place where everyone goes, because it's a safe environment. I can take my kids there. There are movies for them. We also have a game night here, which is currently just church members for the most part, or maybe we invite some friends over, but that can be expanded. There's a lot and in your message you brought up, I believe it was 9 different ways to serve, one of them being the movie night.
Right.
But to me, some of those things are superficial, but it's a way to get the message out that we are here.
Yeah.
We, and come,
Yeah.
come to where we are. We're not inviting anybody to church necessarily, but what we are saying is we're here for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie night is a way to just bring them in to see that that's what,
Absolutely.
what's
You can
actually
you can
happening.
build on that. And if nothing else happens, then people coming to a movie night and getting to know us, then nothing more can be said other than, well, I mean, they know who we are. We've reached out.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's an invitation for something greater.
Yes.
And
yes.
and some you could build upon that, not only with a movie night, but maybe a night out, date night for the parents, kind of thing, and slowly have people grow interest in what we're a part with, but just as importantly as to help be neighborly to the community around us.
And one of the things in your list in your message was having some like extra food, almost like a food pantry.
Yes, yes.
Maybe not on the level of the food pantry we already supply, but maybe just having some items available that if someone has a need that shows up on their doorstep, it's like, yes, we have some food here, we can give that to you. To get more, then point them to the resource that we are actually supporting. So there's so much that can grow out of that, but at the same time, inviting neighbors in to see what we're doing, they then become neighbors to other neighbors. Perhaps they're not meeting at the church, maybe they're meeting in homes, just being friends
Exactly.
and supporting each other. And that's kind of where I see all this going. And I think, actually, I kind of think this whole idea might be a really good wrap up to the entire series on hospitality, is not just being hospitable to others, but helping others be hospitable to those they come in contact with, even if they are not a part of our church.
I think that's a perfect ending.
Okay, and you can stop coughing now. So we're going to wrap it up there. And if you have any thoughts, put them down in the comments. If you did not hear the entire message, there will be a link in the comments for you. You can go there and actually see what we're talking about or what we're talking back to, and leave your comments on that also. And we'll see you next week.
Take care. Blessings.